My husband threw his red wine all on me in public. "Look what you made me do," he said. The first drops of Merlot hit my face before I even realized what was happening. Time slowed as the dark liquid splashed across my cream blouse, the one I'd saved for 3 months to buy, and trickled down my collarbone. Gasps rippled through Carmine's, the upscale Italian restaurant where half of my husband's law firm was celebrating a major case win. Silverware clattered against plates. Someone dropped a glass. The maitre d' froze mid-stride. My husband, Jordan Gray, towered over me, empty wine glass still tilted in his perfectly manicured hand, his expression a precise calibration of shock and righteous indignation, the look of a man who wanted everyone to think he was as surprised by his actions as they were. "Now look what you made me do," he hissed, just loud enough for nearby tables to hear. That was Jordan's specialty, making his cruelty seem like my fault. I didn't cry. Not immediately. Instead, I sat perfectly still, wine dripping from my chin onto the $290 tablecloth, cataloging the silent witnesses, the senior partner's wife with her hand pressed to her mouth, the young associates carefully studying their bread plates, the waitstaff hovering uncertainly at the periphery, and Kelly, Jordan's sister, watching with the faintest smile playing at the corners of her mouth. My name is Amber Gray. I'm 34 years old, and in that frozen moment, with Merlot soaking through my blouse and strangers pretending not to stare, I finally admitted to myself what I'd been denying for 7 years: my marriage was killing me, one small humiliation at a time. The problem had started, as these things often do, so gradually I barely noticed. Jordan had been charming when we met, attentive, ambitious, with the kind of confidence that made everyone in the room want his approval. I was a writer then, making modest but steady money with my freelance work, and halfway through a novel that my agent was excited about. "You're going to be the next big thing," Jordan had said on our third date, raising his glass to my potential. "And I'm going to be there when it happens." What he meant, though I didn't understand it then, was that he wanted to own my success, to fold it into his carefully curated image of the perfect life. When that success didn't materialize quickly enough, when my novel stalled amid his constant critiques and helpful suggestions, his support curdled into something else. "Maybe writing isn't really your thing," he said one evening, 6 months into our marriage. "Not everyone has what it takes." By then, I was already working as his unofficial assistant. "Just until you find your footing again." Unpaid, of course, because we're a team. I organized his calendar, maintained his contact list, prepared his expense reports, all while trying to carve out time for my own work. Time that increasingly disappeared as Jordan's demands expanded. Then came Kelly. Kelly was 2 years younger than Jordan, with the same dark hair and green eyes, the same sharp intelligence, and the same absolute certainty that the world existed to serve her needs. She'd moved to town after her divorce. He just couldn't handle a strong woman, and immediately inserted herself into our lives with the precision of a surgical knife. "Amber, sweetie," she'd say, letting herself into our house with the key Jordan had given her without consulting me. "I need you to run to the cleaners for me. I have an interview this afternoon and my lucky blazer is there." Or, "I told Jordan you wouldn't mind watching Pixel while I'm in Miami this weekend. Dogs are so therapeutic for creative types, maybe it'll help with your block." She'd say the last word like it was a particularly distasteful medical condition. Pixel, her neurotic Pomeranian, had separation anxiety, a hatred of all other animals, and a penchant for destroying anything made of paper, including the draft chapters of my novel that I'd finally started working on again. "It's just paper," Jordan had said when I found the shredded pages scattered across the living room floor. "You have it on your computer, right? Besides, Kelly really needed this weekend away. She's been through so much." Always Kelly, with her endless crises and demands. Always Jordan, making excuses for her, prioritizing her needs over mine. The two of them formed a closed circuit of mutual enabling that left no room for anyone else, least of all me. The financial control came next. Subtle at first, Jordan suggesting we combine our accounts for simplicity, then increasingly overt. "I think I should handle the finances," he said after I purchased a new laptop without consulting him. Though mine had died mid-assignment and I'd used my own freelance money. You're not great with budgeting, and I deal with this stuff every day. Soon. I was asking permission to buy coffee, explaining every purchase, watching my own earnings disappear into accounts I no longer controlled. When I finally got up the courage to ask for my own credit card again, Jordan's response was a masterclass in gaslighting. Why would you need that? Are you hiding something from me? His voice was concerned, his expression wounded. I thought we were past all that independent stuff. We're married, Amber, we're one unit. One unit where he made the decisions and I complied. One unit where his career mattered and mine was a cute hobby. One unit where Kelly's constant intrusions were acceptable, but my boundaries were selfish and immature. By the time of the wine incident, I hadn't written in months. I worked 30 hours a week for Jordan, unpaid, and spent another 20 managing Kelly's endless emergencies, everything from picking up her dry cleaning, to rewriting her resume, to feeding Pixel when she forgot she had plans. Family helps family, Jordan would say whenever I objected. Kelly's going through a hard time. Kelly had been going through a hard time for 4 years. The evening of the wine started like any other firm dinner me in the outfit Jordan had chosen. The blue makes you look washed out, wear the cream, making small talk with people who barely remembered my name, smiling until my face hurt while Jordan worked the room. Kelly arrived an hour late, as usual, her dramatic entrance designed to pull focus. Jordan, there you are. She air-kissed him, then turned to me with significantly less enthusiasm. Amber, that's an interesting choice of blouse. You picked it out last Christmas, I reminded her. You said it was versatile. Did I? Well, we all make mistakes. She laughed, a sound like glass breaking. Jordan, be a dear and ask them to bring me a dirty martini, extra olives. As Jordan dutifully signaled for a server, Kelly slid into the seat next to mine, her $800 handbag a necessary investment Jordan had funded, shoving my modest clutch aside. So, she began, voice dripping with false sympathy. Still no luck with that little book of yours. I've been busy, I said carefully, knowing Jordan was watching. Helping with the Westerly case took a lot of time. Of course, Kelly nodded, hand on my arm. It's important to contribute somehow. We can't all have real careers. The dig landed as intended. I looked to Jordan, hoping for once he might defend me, but he was deep in conversation with a senior partner, deliberately oblivious. Actually, I said, summoning courage I didn't know I still had. I've been thinking about taking on a new writing project. A literary agent reached out about a potential ghostwriting opportunity. This was true, my former agent had called last week, offering a job that could put me back in the writing world and, crucially, give me my own income again. I hadn't mentioned it to Jordan yet, knowing his likely reaction. Kelly's eyebrows shot up. Did she now? How fortunate. Though ghostwriting isn't really writing, is it more like professional plagiarism? She smirked. Have you told Jordan? Told me what? Jordan appeared with Kelly's martini, his timing impeccable as always when it came to his sister. Amber's been keeping secrets, Kelly said with exaggerated concern. Some agent offered her work. The change in Jordan's expression was subtle, a slight narrowing of the eyes, a tightening around the mouth, but I'd become fluent in his micro-expressions, each one a weather vane for his moods. You didn't mention that, he said lightly, though the warning was clear. I was going to, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. It just came up last week. Jordan took his seat, placing Kelly's martini before her with ceremonial precision. Well, we'll discuss it later. I'm not sure it's the right time for you to take on additional commitments, given everything else. Everything else being, I pressed, knowing I was stepping into dangerous territory but unable to stop. Don't be obtuse. Amber, Kelly interjected. Jordan's up for partner this year. He needs your support, not your divided attention. I wasn't asking you, I said, surprising myself with the edge in my voice. Kelly's mouth opened in shock. Jordan's hand came down hard on the table, rattling the silverware. That's enough, he said, his public face slipping just enough to reveal the cold anger beneath. Apologize to Kelly. Around us. Conversations dimmed as people pretended not to listen. The senior partner's wife suddenly became very interested in her salad. I felt heat rising in my cheeks, the familiar flush of public humiliation. "Why should I apologize?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "This is between us, Jordan. It has nothing to do with Kelly." "Everything that affects this family concerns me," Kelly said, her voice carrying just enough to ensure everyone heard. "Jordan and I look out for each other. We always have." "And where do I fit into this family?" I asked, placing my napkin on the table. "Because from where I'm sitting, I'm somewhere between unpaid help and inconvenient accessory." Jordan's face darkened. "You're making a scene." "No, I'm finally saying what I should have said years ago. I'm tired of being the third wheel in my own marriage. I'm tired of asking permission to live my life. And I'm especially tired," I said, looking directly at Kelly, "of being treated like staff by someone who can't even manage her own life." The silence that followed was absolute. Kelly's face contorted with rage, her hand clutching her martini glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. Jordan looked around the restaurant, clearly calculating the social damage. "You're embarrassing yourself," he hissed, "and me." "No, Jordan," I replied, finding a calm I didn't know I possessed. "I'm finally seeing clearly, and I'm done with both of you." I stood, ready to walk out with whatever dignity I could salvage. That's when it happened, Jordan grabbing his wine glass and flinging the contents directly at my face. "Now look what you made me do," he said as the red liquid dripped down my burning cheeks. In that moment, through the shock and humiliation, something crystallized inside me, hard, clear, and unbreakable. I took a deep breath, picked up my small clutch, the only thing at the table that was truly mine, and walked out of Carmine's without looking back. Outside, I leaned against the building, gulping the cool night air. My blouse was ruined, my face still wet with wine, and now, finally, tears. But underneath the humiliation burned something new: resolve. I pulled out my phone and called the only person I knew would come without questions. "CLA, it's me, I need help." Clara Anderson. CLA to her friends had been telling me to leave Jordan for years. She'd watched my transformation from confident writer to anxious shadow with increasing alarm, her warnings becoming more urgent as Jordan's control tightened. "It's not just bad, Amber," she'd said after witnessing Jordan berate me for buying the wrong brand of coffee. "It's abuse." I'd defended him then, making excuses, minimizing. The word abuse seemed too extreme, too dramatic for what was happening. Abuse was bruises and broken bones. Wasn't it not criticism and control and constant undermining? I knew better now. CLA arrived within 20 minutes, her ancient Volvo screeching to a halt outside Carmine's. She took one look at me, wine-stained and trembling, and her expression shifted from concern to cold fury. "Get in," she said. "You're not going back there. Not tonight, not ever." As we drove to her apartment, I told her everything, not just the wine incident, but all of it. The financial control, the isolation, the way Jordan and Kelly had systematically dismantled my confidence and independence. The words poured out of me, messy and raw, 7 years of suppressed truth finally breaking free. "I knew it was bad," CLA said when I finally ran out of words. "But Jesus, Amber, this is next-level manipulation." "I feel so stupid," I whispered. "How did I not see it?" "Because that's how it works," she replied, pulling into her building's parking lot. "They don't start with wine in the face. They start with, 'I just want what's best for you, and you're too good for that job, and I'll handle the money so you don't have to worry.' They boil the frog slowly." In CLA's cozy one-bedroom, I showered away the wine and put on borrowed pajamas. We sat on her sofa, mugs of tea in hand, and began to make a plan. "First things first," CLA said, opening her laptop. "We need a lawyer." "I don't have any money," I reminded her. "Jordan controls all our accounts." "Then we'll find someone who offers free consultations, and tomorrow, you're coming to the bookstore with me." CLA managed a small independent bookstore that had been my haven before Jordan started commenting on how much time I spent there. "Hiding in books instead of writing one," he'd say with that particular laugh that wasn't really a laugh. "The owner needs someone part-time," CLA continued. "The pay's not great, but it's something, somewhere to start." Start over. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. I hadn't realized until that moment how completely I'd given up on the idea of my own life, my own path. Jordan won't let this go easily, I said, voicing my deepest fear. And Kelly will make it her mission to destroy me. CLA's smile was grim. Let them try. The next morning, my phone was flooded with texts and voicemails from Jordan, alternating between rage, "How dare you humiliate me in front of my colleagues?" Wounded innocence, "I don't understand why you're doing this to us." And manipulation, "Kelly is devastated. She loves you like a sister." I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I went with CLA to Horizon Books, where the owner, a retired literature professor named Eleanor, hired me on the spot. "Anyone who knows the difference between Austen and Bronte is qualified," she said, waving away my concern about the wine-stained blouse, the only clothing I had with me. "Besides, CLA vouches for you, and that's good enough for me." That afternoon, I met with a lawyer CLA had found, Meera Patel, a family law specialist who offered sliding scale fees and a razor-sharp assessment of my situation. "Financial abuse is still abuse," she confirmed after hearing my story. "And throwing wine at you in public, that's assault, technically speaking." "I don't want to press charges," I said, though the word assault landed with surprising weight. "I just want out. And your things, your personal belongings." I thought of my clothes, my books, my laptop with all my writings still in the house I shared with Jordan. "He won't let me back in to get them." "He doesn't have a choice," Meera said, already typing a note. "We'll get a civil standby, a police officer to accompany you while you collect your essentials. In the meantime," she slid a document across the desk. "Fill this out. Every account you know about, every asset, every debt. Be as thorough as possible." I stared at the form, suddenly overwhelmed by how little I knew about our finances despite having managed Jordan's expense reports for years. "What if I don't know everything?" "That's okay," Meera assured me. "We can subpoena financial records. Jordan's in for a rude awakening if he thinks he can hide money in a divorce proceeding." Divorce. The word I hadn't let myself think yet, let alone say aloud. The finality of it should have terrified me. But instead, I felt something like relief. "One more thing," Meera said as I was leaving. "Start documenting everything, every text, every email, every encounter, and get yourself a new phone and a new bank account as soon as possible. I've seen men like your husband before. They don't let go easily." She was right. 3 days after I left, while I was shelving books at Horizon, Jordan appeared. He was perfectly put together as always, charcoal suit, silk tie, not a hair out of place, but his eyes had the wild look of a man unaccustomed to not getting his way. "Amber," he said, voice carefully modulated for public consumption, "we need to talk." I clutched the book in my hands, ironically. A self-help title on recovering from toxic relationships, and tried to steady my breathing. "I'm working, Jordan." "Playing shop girl, you mean?" His smile was razor thin. "This little tantrum has gone on long enough. It's time to come home." "I'm not coming back." My voice was quieter than I wanted, but firm. "Meera Patel's office should have contacted you by now." The mention of the lawyer's name hit him like a physical blow. His careful mask slipped, revealing the cold anger beneath. "A lawyer? Are you serious?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "After everything I've done for you, I saved you. Amber, you were a mess when we met, insecure, floundering. I gave you direction, purpose. You gave me rules and limitations," I corrected, "and I'm done with them." His laugh was harsh. "You won't survive a week without me. You have no money, no credit, nowhere to live except your loser friend's sofa." "I'd rather sleep on a sofa for the rest of my life than spend another night pretending your control is love." Jordan's face darkened. "You ungrateful little—" "Everything okay here?" CLA appeared beside me, her expression pleasant but her stance unmistakably protective. "Mind your own business," Jordan snapped. "This is between me and my wife." "Your soon-to-be ex-wife," I corrected, finding strength in the words. "And this is my workplace, which you need to leave, now." "Or what?" Jordan sneered. "Or I call the police and report you for harassment," Eleanor said, materializing from the poetry section like a literary guardian angel. "Which I'm fully prepared to do if you don't exit my store immediately." Jordan looked between the three of us, seeming to realize he was outmatched, with a final glare. He turned and stalked out, the bell over the door jingling absurdly in his wake. "Well," Eleanor said, straightening her cardigan, "he seems charming, despite everything." I laughed a real laugh, rusty from disuse but genuine. "You have no idea." The civil standby to collect my belongings was scheduled for the following Saturday. Jordan, predictably, tried to have it rescheduled 3 times, citing work commitments. When that failed, he claimed to be out of town, a lie quickly disproven when the police officer called and heard background noise from the local sports bar Jordan frequented. When we finally arrived, me, CLA, and Officer Martinez, a no-nonsense woman with kind eyes and zero patience for Jordan's tactics, the house was in disarray. Items had been clearly moved or hidden. My laptop was nowhere to be found. Most of my clothes were still there, though the most expensive pieces, the ones Jordan had bought. His investments were missing. "This is ridiculous," CLA muttered, helping me pack what remained. "He's acting like a child." "Actually," Officer Martinez said, watching as I discovered my grandmother's jewelry box emptied of its contents. "This is fairly common behavior in these situations. Control freaks don't handle losing control well." As I filled suitcases with whatever I could salvage, I noticed something odd. None of Kelly's things were visible. Her spare key was missing from the hook by the door. The guest room closet, which had gradually filled with her overflow clothes and accessories, was empty. "She's moved in," I realized aloud. "Kelly's living here now." CLA's expression was a mixture of disgust and vindication. "Of course she is. I always said their relationship was creepy." I should have been hurt, or at least surprised, but all I felt was a profound sense of clarity. The truth of Jordan and Kelly's bizarre codependence, which I'd been denying for 7 years, was finally impossible to ignore. We were nearly finished when the front door banged open and the siblings themselves appeared, Jordan looking thunderous, Kelly smirking behind him. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Jordan demanded, ignoring Officer Martinez completely. "Collecting her belongings, as legally arranged," Officer Martinez replied coolly, "which you were notified about 3 times. She's taking things that aren't hers," Kelly interjected, stepping forward to snatch a vase from CLA's hands. "This is mine." "Actually," I said, finding that new, clear voice again, "that's my grandmother's. You've just never bothered to learn what belongs to who in this house." "You little—" "Careful," Officer Martinez warned. "I'm right here, and I will absolutely document any threats or aggression." Kelly subsided, though her eyes promised retribution. Jordan, meanwhile, was maintaining his public persona, concerned. Reasonable. Misunderstood. "Amber, can we please talk privately?" he asked, his voice softening to the tone he used when he wanted something. "This has all gotten out of hand. I know you're upset about the restaurant, but—" "This isn't about the restaurant," I cut him off. "It's about the last 7 years. It's about control and manipulation and the way you and your sister have systematically tried to erase me as a person." "That's absurd," Kelly scoffed. "You're being typically dramatic." "Am I?" I turned to face her fully. "Let's talk about how you accidentally destroyed my manuscript pages, or how you showed up at my agent meetings to support me and then spent the whole time talking about Jordan's career. Or how about the time you convinced Jordan I was flirting with his colleague when I was actually discussing a potential writing opportunity?" Kelly's face flushed. Jordan stepped between us, his back to his sister in a practiced protective stance. "You're hysterical," he said dismissively. "This is exactly why you need me. You can't manage your emotions." "My emotions are just fine," I replied, surprised to find it was true. "It's your behavior that's the problem." As the standoff continued, I suddenly felt very tired, not just from the day, but from years of this dynamic. Years of being told my perceptions were wrong, my feelings invalid, my needs secondary. Years of trying to fit myself into smaller and smaller spaces to accommodate Jordan and Kelly's outsized demands. "I'm done here," I said, zipping the final suitcase. "Officer Martinez, I have everything I can take today." "Wait," Jordan said, his voice taking on that dangerous edge I knew too well. "You're not taking your ring." The diamond engagement ring and wedding band sat on the dresser where I'd left them 3 days earlier. I looked at them, at the symbols of a union that had nearly destroyed me, and shook my head. Keep them, sell them, give them to Kelly to add to her collection, I don't care. As we walked out, Jordan called after me. You'll regret this. Amber, you're nothing without me. Nothing. I didn't look back. The next few weeks passed in a blur of paperwork, lawyer meetings, and shifts at Horizon Books. Jordan escalated his tactics, alternating between love-bombing expensive flower deliveries I refused to accept and threats increasingly hostile emails that went straight to Mira. Kelly, meanwhile, launched a social media campaign painting me as unstable and ungrateful. Old acquaintances messaged me with concerns about my mental health after she posted carefully edited snippets of conversations and photos from less flattering moments. She really is the worst, CLA said. Scrolling through Kelly's latest post, a teary-eyed selfie with the caption, "Supporting my brother through this difficult time. Some people show their true colors when life gets challenging. She's always been the worst." I agreed, surprising myself with how little Kelly's drama affected me now. The difference is I finally see it clearly. The financial discovery process revealed exactly what Mira had suspected: Jordan had been hiding money. Lots of it. Secret accounts, unreported income, creative business expenses that were actually personal luxuries. Most damning of all, evidence that he'd been funneling my earnings into accounts only he controlled. "We've got him," Mira said with grim satisfaction. "Financial fraud during marriage is something judges take very seriously." But the real revelation came when the discovery process uncovered payments to Kelly, regular transfers, labeled as consulting fees for services never rendered. Jordan had been supporting her lavish lifestyle for years, using our joint funds. Technically, that's dissipation of marital assets, Mira explained. And given the amount, over $200,000 in the past 3 years alone, it's significant. Armed with this information, Mira arranged a settlement conference. Jordan arrived with his lawyer, a sharply dressed man with cold eyes and an aggressive approach that wilted once Mira began methodically presenting evidence of financial misconduct. "Here's what's going to happen," she said after an hour of watching Jordan's facade crumble under the weight of documented fraud. "Amber gets the full value of her earnings that you diverted, plus half of the marital assets you attempted to hide. She also gets compensated for the consulting fees paid to Kelly, as those were clearly not legitimate business expenses but gifts to your sister using marital funds." Jordan's lawyer leaned over, whispering urgently. Jordan's face, usually so controlled, flushed with anger. "This is ridiculous," he hissed. "Kelly provided valuable services." "Such as?" Mira inquired pleasantly. "Business development, networking, client relations." "Interesting. We've subpoenaed your firm's records and found no evidence of Kelly ever participating in any professional capacity. No contracts, no invoices for specific services, no work product." The silence that followed was deafening. Jordan's lawyer whispered again, more urgently. "Fine," Jordan finally said. "What does she want?" The way he referred to me in the third person, like I wasn't sitting right across from him, would have once cut deep. Now it just confirmed what I already knew to Jordan. I had never been a full person, just an accessory to his life. "She wants what she's legally entitled to," Mira replied, "and a clean break." The settlement was finalized 3 months after I walked out of Carmine's with wine dripping down my face. Jordan, facing potential ethics investigations if his financial misconduct became public, agreed to terms far more favorable than I'd dared hope for. I received the full value of my diverted earnings, half of our actual marital assets, substantially more than Jordan had initially disclosed, and additional compensation for the improper payments to Kelly. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to secure an apartment, replace my mysteriously vanished laptop, and have some breathing room to restart my life. The day the final paperwork was signed, I treated CLA and Eleanor to dinner, not at Carmine's, but at a small bistro where the owner knew Eleanor and treated us like royalty. "To fresh starts," CLA toasted, raising her glass of champagne. "And to good friends," I added, clinking my glass against hers. "I wouldn't be here without you." "Nonsense," Eleanor said firmly. "You'd have found your way eventually. Strong women always do." "Strong? The word settled around me like a comfortable sweater. 6 months ago, I wouldn't have applied it to myself. 6 months ago, I had been slowly disappearing. My edges blurred by Jordan's constant criticism and Kelly's relentless undermining. Now, I had my own apartment, a small but bright one-bedroom with bookshelves CLA had helped me build. I had a job I enjoyed at Horizon, with Eleanor increasingly delegating the store's literary events to me. I had a new laptop, and on it, the beginnings of a new novel, not the one Jordan had criticized to death, but something entirely different, something honest. And I had myself the real Amber, not the diminished version Jordan had tried to create. 1 week after the settlement was finalized, I received a text from an unknown number. "I hope you're satisfied with yourself. You've ruined his life. Kelly." Of course. I should have blocked the number immediately, but something made me respond one last time. "I didn't ruin anything, Kelly. Jordan did that himself, with your enthusiastic help, but I'm not interested in ruining lives, his or yours. I'm interested in living mine. Please don't contact me again." I blocked the number before she could reply, then opened my laptop and returned to my novel, a story about a woman who loses herself and then, against all odds, finds her way back again. As I wrote, I thought about the night at Carmine's, the shock of the wine, the public humiliation, the devastating clarity that followed. What Jordan had intended as punishment had instead been liberation. His cruelest moment had become my first step toward freedom. Sometimes, I realized, rock bottom is actually solid ground, a place to plant your feet and push off towards something better, something real. I began to type, my fingers finding the rhythm they'd lost years ago. The first drops of wine hit her face before she realized what was happening.